This is Jason Reed Pratt, author of Cry of Justice. Have you ever wanted to play an email multiplayer game of decisive campaigns, the Blitzkrieg from Warsaw to Paris, but couldn't figure out how from the near total lack of useful information and the sparse hints from the manual in the game? Me too! Fortunately, I already made an episode 0, which was about half devoted to that topic, and you should go watch that up to the point where you don't care anymore. This is episode 1, and I am just going to skip past how to play a multiplayer game on DC1 and get to playing my first turn, or round rather, since in this game turns are rounds and there are no turns except when the game calls them turns, which is usually against Barthheart from the Grogheads Forum, who also helped write part of the manual. But not the scattered parts which sort of hint at how to play a multiplayer email game. More like one of the tutorials. Something useful. Certainly he helped me figure out how to play an email game. I have a long history of almost 3/4 of a year losing to Barthheart in games like this. And in games more generally. Really, in everything I've ever played against. So I have gladly accepted his gracious invitation to play the Nasties this time, so that, if I echo their historical win, great, I won. And if I lose, great, the Nazis lose. We will be playing the linked campaign, starting with the Nazi invasion of Poland, with no major historical variance, which means, among other things, that neither of us will be allowed a free turn to shuffle our pieces around on the map. We play them as they, more or less historically, lay. It also means that the game will tauntingly grant me the option of wasting political points at the start of the game, which I might need later for other purposes, on a slew of potential factors which will benefit me nothing at all. Buried in this list, however, are 2 options which could benefit me. One is this, which will give me 25 more points for taking away 7 infantry divisions with their integral artillery support. Since I barely know what I'm doing, and since I looked around at my standard starting pieces last time, I already think I've got too few troops to win in the time allowed to me, or rather they're spread out too far, so no, I won't be stretching that thin thread thinner. On the other hand, this other card allows me to pay 25 points for an extra 2 rounds, which the game sometimes calls turns, and you know what, I'm an old D&D guy, I'm going to call them turns hereafter. I need more time, I don't need fewer troops. That done, I play the card which starts the game? Huh. Okay. The pre-turn info screens tell me first that we'll have rain on turn 1. This is true for all campaign starts, since it's historical, I think, and helps keep the Polish Air Force from being murdered immediately. On subsequent turns, there will be a 25% chance of rain. I'm not sure yet whether rain affects all the map of Western Poland or only some of it. Next, I'm told Brigade Eberhardt has taken the city of Danzig without any fighting. This also always happens for the Germans at the start of the campaign. We'll see what that means later. Here's an important pre-turn report reminding me I need to pick up 30 victory points to win, 10 of which can be grabbed at Warsaw, in the center of the map, equally far away from all my forces. I think VPs are only awarded by taking major cities in this game. In theory, Poland could take some of my starting major cities and so shuffle over my starting 14 victory points to their side. In practice, well, Barth, unlike the Polish in this operation, understands blitz warfare very well, and so I'll have to be cautious about him trying such a counter-blitz, even though he only has Polish forces to work with here. His cavalry are fast and could ruin me badly. Barth also only needs to hold on to 11 VPs through 14 turns to win. Basically Warsaw and any one other major city, including any one of mine. Beyond that, this screen will help me track my casualties so far. I can still win if I go above 10%, but I'll be proportionately penalized when invading France. Time to actually start turn 1. After swanning around the map, getting a little better acquainted with who is in command, where, with what, I have decided to start up here near Danzig. And there's the Eberhardt Brigade, 2 infantry regiments, who have struck the first blow for reuniting the Königsberg region north of Poland with the rest of Germany, by marching over some bridges into the unprotected city and shouting, "Via the Nazis! Give up now!" I'm terrible at German accents. These colored bands show the command bonus radius of their headquarters, von Falkenhorst 21st Corps, much further south along that river where the Polish border turns east. We'll see him again later. The point for now is that Eberhardt's brigade is outside the command radius and will be crippled going forward, since I sure don't mean for Vulcan to turn his trucks around and drive north anytime soon. I hope. Now, only 2 hexes away is another major Polish port city, Gdynia. You can tell it's a city that scores points because its dot is orange. What we can't tell yet is whether someone is guarding it. It may look empty, but Ebb's brig doesn't have a lot of scouting ability, and mousing over that hex tells me, looking up here, that the recon fort is below 40. 15 electric cardboard chits could be stacked in that hex, and I wouldn't be able to tell. Yet. How can I tell what's there? Well, I could march one of the regiments up a hex and let them report back, but I have some other options tied into the topic of what to do about this thing. That corridor is owned by Poland, thanks to negotiations long ago, giving them access to some ports like Danzig and Gdynia. Gdynia, yeah, I think that's kind of right. Gdynia. The squiggly orange and white dashes earlier are the Polish area of control and supply, which we'll be gnawing away, I hope, throughout the game. I have also activated, for now, an orangish overlay which clarifies where Poland has control. This early in the game, the orange mostly signifies Poland's national claims, but I've already advanced into controlling some areas, mainly southeast of Danzig. You can tell these areas are loyal to Poland because they will have little 5s in their hexes, assuming I've turned on the extra hex information, which I have, representing extra action points any of my pieces need to spend to move through the area against minor internal opposition. In other words, where you see little 5s scattered around like that, even inside my area that I control, that's area that used to be Poland. Ideally, I want to take some troops across the middle here and so cut off supply to everything north of it, which will allow Gdynia to be taken with only scrap troops after a few turns. But anything at all could be hiding in that corridor. Some parts, my brigades and regiments can't see at all, the gray parts in the middle, and other parts we can't see enough of to be sure. The solution, as will become increasingly true throughout World War II, is aircraft. Over here I've got a Fliegelkorps sitting around capable of flying some recon. When I select a target hex, a single plane will fly out there, turn around, and come back, and highly upgrade the recon of any hexes near its flight path, modified by cover like forests and cities. So, I'll do that. This is the combat results screen, which shows up because the plane could run into enemy fighters, theoretically, and/or anti-aircraft flak, more likely. And for no good reason, the game thinks air photo missions sometimes feature dive bombing. But the sound effects are random bling, they don't mean anything. Well, hey, yep, someone is sitting in Gdynia. The National Guard, I guess? My Polish nearly does not exist, so I'm guessing what ND means. 6,500 troops. That's like a full division camped in the city. I don't care how arrogant Eberhardt's SS troops are, I'm not butting their Nazi heads against that. Let's send another plane out to scout the area here between Eberhardt's fellow corps and these fellows here. Ideally, one strategy would be to run von Falk leftward into that gap and hit the Polish defenders from behind. Or run anyone into that gap, really. I've got several options up there. Zip the plane over and there's a lone infantry. And evidently not much else along that flight track, for now. We'll get back to this later. My impression is that there won't be many troops along the corridor north of the Polish main western defense to cut off supply to. I'm almost sure that grammar in the sentence worked. So I might as well move some pieces toward Gdynia and strangle it locally. The 32 Green Shoots Regiment here looks, from its NATO symbol, to be elite rangers or something like that, but I happen to know they're a small pack of zero experience green shooters. Like, I don't know, Gretchens, maybe? Alone, they're worth nothing. Against a National Guard division in a city, they would die quickly, and this crew are assigned to an Army HQ far to the south out of command bonuses. But they can cap points, so to speak, and lend help in cutting off supply in a surrounding for an attack. They also walk slow, so I'll be lucky if they're in place next turn to do anything. I should mention here that I'm carefully scouting hexes ahead of me to see which ones my recon values say are safely empty to move into, since I don't want to run into an ambush. You can just assume I'm doing that before practically every move, and if you see me hexing around ahead of the troops, like here, that's probably what I'm doing. but I'll only make special mention of it from here out. Next up, the 207th Infantry Division, also under direct command of 4th Army HQ, also pretty much out of command radius. Also, almost trash, since they're reservist. You can see a little R in the middle of their NATO infantry symbol if you squint. But they do have proper numbers, and a standard kit of special teams and support, both in close artillery and in a distinct arty battalion. I'll be bringing that up to pound Gdynia from a distance eventually, and the other chits will surround it for some fighting and experience eventually. Not this turn, but I'm setting up for it. The 10th Panzer Division over here, directly under command of the Whole Army Group North HQ, is a short division with only 2 brigades, but their infantry brigade is fully motorized, so they can zip along nicely, and for a short division they have a nice mix. I don't need them up north, or the other green shoots either, so I'll be moving them into the corridor for a push south along the main rail line eventually. This will also get the 10th Panzer Division and those green shoots back into command radius of their headquarters soon-ish. Moving this green shoot up reveals a Polish cavalry brigade in the corridor, and apparently not anywhere near full strength if my recon is right, but it could be wrong. Those things which look like tanks aren't tanks, really, but tracked armored cars. They're actually worse than my piddly Panzer I go-karts. The game regards them as classed with trucks. Oh, note to self, talk about how I'm dripping with terrible tanks later. At least these 5 other things are clearly armored cars. A cool retro recon design too, although woefully behind the time, more like a recon car from the previous war. No, the real danger here are the horses. This is something like a motorized brigade, although very under strength. They can move fast, and if Barth counterblitzes me, he'll use things like this to do it. Not likely this one per se, but still, I make a note to kill it soon to be safe. Oh, right, got distracted by my decision not to commit anyone else to the peninsula up there. Move the rest of the 207th Reserve Div, and they've cut off Gdynia and points north from supply already. Sort of. Gdynia is a port city, and I suspect the game thus gives them some supplies regardless, but this will help. Man, do I really even need the whole division up there? I know I should keep them together, but it seems like a waste of effort. Maybe I can send one brigade south to help. Ah! Did you see that? That's why I'm careful about how far I move any piece at a time. That whole infantry division, in one piece, not sectioned off into multiples for maneuvering, was sitting in the city, and my greens never saw it. I'm definitely not fighting them either yet. Cutting them off to rot a while sounds better. I'll go ahead and move Eber's regiments around Gdynia to see if I can taunt Barth into wasting his strengths with spoiling attacks. Speaking of garrison troops, my 3rd Army has a whole division of reservists sitting around in these cities of the Königsberg region just doing nothing. If Barth counter-blitzes me that far unsuccessfully, I'm already failing too hard to matter much. I'm going to bring them down to reforge together under 3rd Army's command radius, starting that plan now. And I'm going to use our strategic movement capability to teleport them down the rails faster. Or rather I would, except for no clear reason I can't. I try several times, but nothing seems to work. Being an absolute newbie, I can't tell if this is a bug or whether I'm still doing something wrong, or if this is just a special near-start rule, or if these garrisons are immune to strategic movement for some game balance purpose. Well, I can still demonstrably march their feet, so I do. I should be able to use these troops later. At worst, they'll provide me with more warning should Barth sneak something into my backfield. While I'm over checking whether Marienburg has a garrison too, I find a cute little armored train! German armored trains aren't anything much. Not yet. And the Polish have a lot more and better ones. I think I only have 2, one on the other side of the corridor, but it could be a little handy, and the 21st Division's 3rd Infantry Brigade, also guarding the city, a lot more handy. Now I have to make a decision about whether to take most of Von Falken's 21st Corps westward into the corridor across the river, or southward into the defenses of that Polish Corps down there. The only feasible way westward across the river is further south, or back up at Marienburg. And it seems like a waste of effort to go backward. But if I'm heading south, then the 3rd Brigade needs to get in gear and march down the road now, and I might as well bring the first security trains too. Sure, I'm leaving the city open for Barth to slowly clomp that infantry over there across toward my major cities on the coast, but you know what? If he wants to try that, fine. I'll just zip my train back up to seal the supply lines behind him, and those infantry will give up without me firing a shot, possibly before they even reach a city. Which, if they do take one, fine. So what? My train can zip over and take it back once they dissolve from lack of supply. It isn't worth much more by itself anyway. Since the train is under control of the Army HQ, I'll send it that way meanwhile. Now, the 21st Corps. It's time to get serious. I'll be going south with them. The 228th Reserve Infantry Division pushed forward for some reason. The 21st Infantry Div, a Corps Engineering Company. These are the smallest groups on the map. And what's this? The I-10 Panzer Arbeiterlung? That's an armored regiment. Let's talk tanks for a minute. Germany is famous for its butt-kicking tanks, but the Panzer IIIe down there was, arguably, their first good one, and it's outclassed by the Panzer IV model, of which this regiment, or battalion, or whatever, only has a combined total of 10. Most of my tanks, as illustrated here, are still Panzer IIs and Panzer Is. Both are reasonably speedy, but they're also both not much better than tracked go-karts with machine guns for the P1, and a teeny fast-shooting cannon for the P2. Better than horses, surely, but by tank standards, they're just a Zerg swarm. And in this game, I can't even swarm them, really. My major tank brigades are not any better by proportion, just more of the same models. Still, they're handy for flanking the enemy and taking back shots or running down fleeing troops. They also get a shot bonus if they're in close proximity to infantry in open fields. So, standard old-timey cavalry in that sense. I just have to remember these are not really awesome yet, and don't let them get into any stand-up fights head-on. The Polish 16th Division has got some understrength infantry brigades in the middle there. I'm not close enough to see this on the map, but I am close enough to mouse over their stats. Putting them in the middle is probably smart since I can't roll them up around the end. I can punch them back, but they'll collapse into a pocket where, if I follow, then Barth will get some opportunities to surround and pocket my brigades. So I'm going to line up, but work on one of the stronger ends first. This one I can concentrate a little strength on from 2 angles, and also call in air support for a bit of bombing. I'll fast forward through this. Miscued placement. This game engine has one persistent terrible design decision, which is that the only way to test for whether a unit can move to attack opens the serious risk for forgetting to manually deselect him before trying to select another unit, thus moving him to stack with the unit you wanted to select, or the hex you wanted to click to check its recon score, or something like that. Doom, 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 doom. Anyway, end with softening their left anchor with a bit of arty and onto the center cores. Third Army up here at Allenstein has some units that I might as well start moving south. I'm not going anywhere else, just flavors of south, and they need to be close enough to really deploy as a reserve. Before I decide where to move the Army Reserve Arty, though, and in this game the Arty can shoot after scooting, plus they're quite motorized, even though they're not self-propelled yet, so they could make a contribution this turn. I need to decide how Wodrig's Corps and the 1st Corps are going to move. Wodrig's Corps. Directly south is Malawa, and that place looks like fortified trouble even without me seeing any troops there yet. And air recon confirms it. There's a whole corps camped in those forts, even if maybe one that hasn't filled up to strength yet. This is a prime candidate for blitzing around, left or right, or maybe both. The east path, Polish right flank, looks like potentially more of a fight trying to flank them, unless I can cross the river at Rozan or better Snielovo. How open is that path, though? Air recon says, not clear, but could be a lot worse. A slightly understrength cav regiment on the road, that seems doable. I realize, though, that before I commit Wodrig, I should be checking on Brandt's group at my far east and seeing what their options are. Here they are, camping at the lakes. Directly east in the shade is the major city of Grodno, one of our victory point targets. We don't have to take every such city, but this one has a purpose. Check the road north of it, going up into Lithuania. That road leads to a hex with a red evac on it. That's a map exit point. Barth can save up to 7 divisions, I think, by sending them out one of the 2 exits. However many he saves up to that limit, I'll have to fight them in France if I win. Making sure no one gets past me to the exit points is important, but there's a big tactical problem. Grodno sits behind the Niemen River, something I can't easily or quickly cross except at the bridge. And if he doesn't already have something parked in town there to hold the bridge at game start, he'd be smart to collapse back there and evacuate. Heck, once he sees me coming, he might as well evacuate out anyone behind the river and save them the trouble of running out of supplies. The shorter version, I can't stop Barth from getting out some Polish to stiffen my opposition in Fall Gelb, so aside from a few victory points, there's no real reason to wasting Brandt's time trying to take Grodno. Someone might be worth taking it later after I cut off enough supply, maybe the security train zipping around, but not yet. However, there are good reasons for me to push that way. First, I still need to cut off supply there so I can run a point capper over to take it later. Second, I need to secure this corner against Barth trying to quick surge before he runs out of supplies. Third, being able to advance down the right map edge will allow me to somewhat more safely attempt a deep flank envelop of enemy positions, more central map. It would be a fallback plan in case Vode's shallower flank attempt doesn't work out. The back door could also be my best chance to get to Warsaw quicker and cut off all enemy supply flow. Pushing map right aims to accomplish all this, and the feint has a good chance of convincing Barth to pull back any troops in the way to evacuate them. My real target, though, is to loop above the Bobber River and then head south. Once he runs out of supply, he might not even be able to move to the evac before his forces melt away altogether. So, let's send out some air recon, and no surprise, there's some cav in the way. I want to make sure I can surround this guy, and I've got plenty of air recon left. So let me send out a scout over. Whoops! Okay, fine. I wanted to go more south anyway, but first I'll push eastward, see if I can bluff him into pulling back during his turn. Might as well bring up my group HQ too. As for my other divisions here, it looks like the Polish have more troops in front of the river than I was expecting. Let's send some more recon so they won't run into surprises. Ack? Surprise? Wow. Absolutely no reason for me to punch those 2 groups head on. I may just camp 206th Reserve Division here between the lakes and try to get my other division around back behind those blocks first. Anyway, I need to see what Barth plans here. Back west to my other Center-North Corps. And time to bomb the horse hockey out of that cav regiment there, and then start moving up to him, or maybe around him for now? Sure. I can't get a good fight on him yet, so I'll prepare both ways. Go around, or get ready to flank him next time. I mean, I'll shoot him a little with what I've got, but yeah, he didn't go anywhere. Next time. Vodrick headquarter forward, and now I think I'll follow with the 3rd Army HQ. That means I'll bring along the remaining Army assets. 1st Corps. I'm just going to probe my way southwest down the road between the rivers. Doom, 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 doom. And nothing down here yet. Good. I'm not too worried if Barth tries to surge forward. I've got reserves coming down to roadblock him if he tries, and then I'll cut him off from behind. More likely he'll drop back out of his fort, but if he moves left or right, that's still out of the forts. We'll see next time. With 1st Corps finished, that's everyone in the Königsberg area, so now it's time to start working on the Western Front, top down. First thing, I'm going to shift my army and army group headquarters north and south a little, respectively, to help support their attached extremities better. Good. Barth hasn't shown a lot or any of dedicated arty battalions, so this one in the backfield will be getting an airstrike first thing. I doubt I can do much more against it this turn, but every bit helps in the long run. This cav unit in the city holding the flank by itself is much more seriously on my doom list, not only because it's the weakest link that I can put the most force on at first, but because it's Barth's fastest unit type and I do not want him counter-blitzing with it. Sad to be you, but that's how it is. Whoever put Cav inside a city to both guard it and anchor the flank should be shot. Hopefully he's in the city right now! Punched out of the city, no surprise. He's back beyond my full recon, but he looked pretty weakened in the combat report. Let's follow that up with a... Doom, 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 doom. Wow, that was a total shatter. First unit gone. That opens up some potential maneuver options, but also I've now got a three-way angle on the next target down. Already strike it, then choose some units for a max efficiency assault. I'm just going to speed through this whole rest of the Northwest Punch now. The key points are to choose a target I can get 3 sides on, if possible, one which moving will open up another target for 3 or even 4 sides. Already smack it. Assets moved into place where possible, move at least 1 strong main fighter near it, and 2 weaker ones on other sides, ideally from as few divisions as possible for better cooperative support. Try not to overstack my attacks much, but not understrike it either. And go. Many times. Put more tanks against things in the open, more infantry against things in the woods or cities. Along the way, I'm running some motorized troops pretty deep by themselves in the start of the loop behind them. That's a bit of a risk. We'll see what Barth does about it. But I want to maximize my opportunities for pocketing next time if I can. Pushing some of Barth's troops into a stack will make nixing them next time harder, but I couldn't really avoid it. Having done that, with a few poor choices like accidentally sending units to the wrong places, thanks to the insane and sadistic move choice interface, let's move down south a little. I should, by the way, mention here that the insane and sadistic move choice interface is still in effect in DC3 Barbarossa, 3 games later. 3rd Corps has got 2 divisions spread out along this river, which, as sad as Polish troops are, I still do not want to assault them across it. Also, one of those divisions is Netzi's brigade, which, even though it seems to be a full division size from looking at its stats, I'm iffy about why it's being called a brigade if it's really up to snuff. The 4th Army Group also has its own attached division down here, the 208th Reserve Infantry, who have already crossed the Netzi River. I guess that division-sized brigade is local, huh? I'm going to be advancing them first to scouting units, and then bringing as many Netzi brigades across the bridge at Kreutz as I feasibly can. 50th Division I'll send to cross the river at Scheidmühl. Just hold that bridgehead for now until I loop their foes. Or until Barth draws back that line. Seems more likely. No surprises during this maneuver, except that maybe Orbanicki down there maybe doesn't have any defenders. And with that, I'm done with all of Army Group North. Well, almost done with Army Group. See, most of Army Group South really is lined up on the south side of the operation, as we can see scanning along here. But the 73rd Infantry Division at New Benston is parked dead center by itself, and actually it's under direct command of Army Group North, which is never going to be close enough to adequately support it. Fortunately for the 73rd, I've got the Oberkommand headquarters of the whole operation sitting back here at Frankfurt an der Oder, doing literally nothing. I mean, technically it has the 2 army groups under its command, but it can't possibly support either of them, and as far as this game is concerned, it's just sitting there. It exists to exist. It has plenty of command overhead remaining, so I'd be an absolute newbie not to assign the 73rd to the OKH and let those blue bloods move up into the action themselves, supporting the 73rd's own little drive into Poland. Surely this will not come back to haunt me in some unforeseen and disastrous way. After bringing up the OKH, the 73rd makes a cautious advance over the river toward Novi Tomasil, which stands in the way of a more major city, and it has a few defenders. That's fine. I'll salt them a little to keep them honest, and then we'll get to work more seriously on them next time, assuming Barth doesn't just pull them back to help protect the more important city. Now, the green shoots up here are rather far north of their headquarters, so I might as well pull them south-ish over the bridge, or one of them anyway, with the other to follow later, to do a bit of scouting closer within headquarters support. Nothing found yet. Whether I bring that corps north over the river or more eastward will depend on how the main advance a little farther south is going, and I'd rather not get into this yet. I had to chew through a big group maneuver not too long ago, and I could stand a rest. Let's swing all the way westward to see what the Slovakian army, which is more like a weak corps, is doing out of support from its HQ. Down here on the far south, we have a serious terrain problem. There are low and high mountains, and those high mountains are completely uncrossable, certainly by headquarters, which have major trouble moving even in low mountains without a road. This means we're funneling out of passes northward, but at least the Polish didn't deploy to guard the passes farther south. It also means that I can't easily get to the southern evacuation point here to block it off. Barth will almost surely be racing divisions out the gate there, but nothing I can do about it anytime soon. So, up with the Slovak Nazi groupies, and they've found their first customer. Not much point sending anyone around to the right, where they'd only have to attack across a river or cross it later. I can't push these defenders out of the way yet either, but I'll give them a bit of salting. Leftward we find the 18th Corps, who have much the same problems, but who also have more options thanks to mountain infantry and no small amount of rolling stock. This may be the second best equipped corps I've seen so far, after Guderian's. They'll need it too, because they're basically the main thrust for the whole southeast sector. Heck, they've got the best scout regiment too. It isn't the scouting regiment which finds our first blocking troops guarding the pass out of the mountains at Nuzandik. I line up some arty shots, but mostly prepare to work my way around them back eastward once I can reach the lowland road network. I'll be curious what Barth does with the troops I'm finding on the road junctions here. Next, move up the 22nd Corps with the 1st and 2nd Infantry Divisions. I don't think any troops parked in Zakopane can march around cutting off supply to the southeast down here without moving north out of the high mountains first, and if I edge my advance right, I should see some warning signs about that if Barth tries, as the front maneuvers around behind me. Of course, if I cut him off first, he'll wither out before he has enough turns to be troubling. That said, as I move forward, I'm rather divided in mind about whether to push on ahead or stay back and secure the area. I'll decide that next time, maybe. Next leftward, the 17th Corps with the 45th and 7th Divisions, and a 3rd Infantry Division, the 44th, already scouting far ahead to the northwest. Good job on the advanced preparation there. Most of this corps, like the others far to the south, has to push up out of the mountain passes to be worth anything, and they've got significantly more problematic obstacles from defenders on the terrain. 44th will have to go around them and try to cut them off or pull them back. That finishes the purely southern side. Now for the much chunkier southwest side and the end of the turn. As it happens, for several corps I'm not even starting in range to fight yet, and we've already seen the basic concepts for starting the pushes while flankers try to flank, so I'm going to fast forward through all.
Oi šermukšnio, kur tu augai tarp balių. Kur tu augai tarp balių. Kur tu augai tarp balių, tarp šių žalių samanų. Tarp šių žalių samanų. Oi matuši, kam tu mane auginai? Kam tu mane auginai? Kam tu mane auginai? Ir vaisko užrašei. Ir vaisko užrašei. Ir vaisko užrašei. Ir tris trūvas nukalai. Ir tris trūvas nukalai. Pirmą triūvą triūbijo iš kiemelio išjodams. Iš kiemelio išjodams. Antrą triūvą triūbijo per atšlaimą juodamas. Per atšlaimą juodamas. Trečią triūvą triūbijo prie vaiskelio pristojęs. Prie vaiskelio pristojęs. Man žirgelis užvingo, visas vaiskas sužiūro. Visas vaiskas sužiūro. Ir sužiūru, kariuomenė į mane. Kariuomenė į mane. Ir atein žuvedų pulks narsiųjų. Žuvedų pulks narsiųjų. Kai ant plečiau sustojom, žuvedus iškapojom. Žuvedus iškapojom. Mūsų katkus labai drūts, tikras buvo karalius. Tikras buvo karalius.
All of this. I know you couldn't see the details there, but you can see the gist of how things moved and got pushed back and what didn't yet. And at the moment, I don't really have special plans other than push for openings and develop and exploit. And that's it. Here's an overview of the map at the end of the turn. Now let's look at some stats. Is this a bug? Did the new 1.6 patch break something? Playing DC3 Barbarossa, I could see comparative stats on the graph here for both teams. I've never gotten this far in DC1 before, but what's the point of labeling a graph Germany if Germany is the only line on the graph? Weird. Anyway, a little more than 5,000 casualties sustained for me, a little over 20,000 caused on Barth. 1 to 4 losses isn't bad, but at this rate I'm looking at almost 10% losses on 14 turns without Barth having even fought back yet. And as I close into Warsaw, things will get harder, not easier. Things do not bode well for me. And it's now Barth's turn of doom. Doom, 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 doom. Amen. 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 Amen.